All right.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday, and happy Friday. I don't know if I mentioned that. Did I mention
We have a special guest with us tonight, Chloe in the house.
that?
Let's give her a round of applause.
For the beautiful American short hair.
She just decided, literally 3 minutes before this live, she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sit right here, and I could give two shits." She's blocking my drink. She don't care, but I'm happy she's with us tonight. She'll probably skedaddle sometime later on. So welcome back to another Shit Talk Fridays. I'm Gina.
And I'm Evo.
And tonight we are drinking just straight ass tequila with some lime in it. And please, again, tell the name of the tequila because when I tell you I jack this name up every single time.
This is one of my favorites. Classically smooth. Casa de Dragones.
Yes. Hang on one second. Let me just check something over here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right? We're good?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't like any other weird feed or anything. Whew. Funny story. I actually have like a pad on the back of my neck. I hurt my muscle area in my back like, I don't know, like a week ago. And I kind of messed with it today. And I was like, yeah, it's going to throw one of those heating pads. Probably not the best idea when you're in a basement shooting a live and there's no AC down here. My back is sweating.
Fire!
Sweating. It'll be fine. But let's cheers for tonight. This is straight, so I'm going to be sipping it slow.
Yeah, you gotta let that marinate and sip a little bit. You gotta respect the tequila.
Little sippy.
You gotta respect the tequila. Oh yeah, that's nice.
You know what's crazy though is that this tequila is so smooth that like I sipped that, I didn't get that like feeling.
Not at all. That's what I love about it so much. It just goes down so smooth, especially with the once
When the ice settles in,
when
it
the ice
gives it, like, a
settles
little
in,
bit of water.
and it just kind of like just marinates in there and gets all nice and comfy.
It gets all snuggly.
It gets all snuggly in there.
All
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
You and that fucking same peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
You got ham, no burger.
Yeah, peanut butter, no jelly.
Anyway, so let's get into our topics for tonight, or rather just our topic. We decided that we were going to talk about the legalization of drugs. And this conversation started off a recent podcast that I listened to with Joe Rogan and an author, journalist, and professor named Michael Pollan. And they had a conversation about his new book that was coming out. And the book is, I want to just give you the exact title of the book. This is Your Mind on Plants. So the book kind of dives into the typical usage of plants that we use in everyday life.
Okay.
So, for example, caffeine, the bean comes from a plant.
Right.
He was also talking about like tea leaves and stuff like that. So he kind of dives into that. So they had this whole conversation surrounding drugs. A portion of the conversation popped off and they made mention of the fact that California has just moved to decriminalize Schedule 1 psychedelics. I'm going to say that again. California has moved to decriminalize Schedule 1 psychedelics, which will include DMT, ecstasy or MDMA, mushrooms, ibogaine, and I'm missing one.
Well, it's just psychedelics, right?
Yeah, so it was ibogaine, DMT, mushrooms, and ecstasy. Quote me if I'm missing any, but those were the drugs that they're moving to decriminalize. So just to give you a little bit of understanding of what it means to decriminalize a small possession of a psychedelic drug, basically just means if you are found with a small possession leading up to about maybe 10 days worth of use, they consider that small possession.
Mm-hmm.
You are not placed in jail.
Right.
You can receive a fine that is somewhat similar to like a parking ticket.
Okay.
What I find so interesting about the decriminalization of a Schedule 1 drug is because you and I did a little research into what makes a drug Schedule 1.
Talk about it.
Before I say that, hello, Edgar. Welcome to the stream. And
What
Star,
up, Edgar?
welcome to the stream. And yes, Edgar, LSD. Thank you. I knew I was missing something.
What's up, Star?
I appreciate both of you
Yes.
joining us tonight. So that being said, we looked into what made a drug Schedule 1 because I was like, I'm a little confused as to like why marijuana and heroin and these psychedelics are all in the same group. I'm
That's
like, they just don't go together.
Yeah, that's like putting like water and oil together. You're gonna put like heroin next to marijuana and say like they're the same thing criminally.
Yeah. So that's what kind of blew my mind. I didn't
Yes.
understand why they were in the same fucking category together. Come to find out, what makes a drug like a Schedule 1 or a Schedule 2 is the amount of usage. So that means that marijuana, heroin, and these psychedelic drugs are on the highest amount of usage in the United States.
Right.
Which I'll be honest, I was pretty surprised that like the psychedelics were on there because like a Schedule 4 was like a Xanax. And I was like, people be popping Xanax on the regular.
I guess it's just not used as much as weed is or marijuana. I guess that's just more of a common thing.
Correct. But I'm also referring to like the psychedelics because they're also Schedule 1. So like
Right.
I found it interesting that like a psychedelic is being used more than like something like a Percocet or like a Xanny or like it's used more than cocaine. I would think that like because cocaine's a Schedule 2, which I was just kind of like, I found that to be interesting. Okay, but that's what the United States says. One is bigger than the other. So Star says, so you mean to tell me that everybody out here is on heroin? Well, currently
some form of it.
Yeah, currently in the United States, we are facing an epidemic when it comes to heroin because of the opiate crisis. And to my understanding, again, through this conversation that I saw on this podcast with Joe Rogan and this journalist, Michael Pollan, who has done significant research into the uses of drugs, 90% of the people that are addicted to heroin at this point in time started off with prescription medication, which would be Percocets, oxycodone. I'm missing another one. Percocets, oxycodone, and
What's the one that they give at the hospital?
morphine. I'm not sure. It's possible, but there's one that they prescribe to you that you could take at home that I feel like I'm missing. And yes, Star, that is bananas. And something like that kind of struck a chord. And by the way, I just did this thing. It struck a chord was I find it so interesting that we have such a high level of addiction to heroin at this current point in time, and it's looked at as an epidemic. But when there was a high addiction rate to crack cocaine, it was the war on drugs. And
But still was an epidemic. But they just...
It wasn't painted that way, though. Yes, we were facing an epidemic, but did you ever hear that type of verbiage being used when it came to that? Did you ever hear in the 80s and 90s someone saying, we're facing an epidemic in drugs? It was like literally...
Well, technically speaking, the war on drugs began...
with Nixon. Excuse me, my cat is literally like rubbing her butt on my drink. Sorry.
I want to say the phrase "the war on drugs" began with Nixon, but the actual war on drugs began in the Prohibition, because that's when the government actually put together a task force, in charge of trying to manage the illegal production and manufacturing and transportation of alcohol at that point. So technically speaking, that's when it actually started, but the term, yes, I think it was more like widely known when Nixon really kind of like when he went hard. He definitely went hard. He stepped it up big time.
So Star says, so more people are probably dying from heroin overdose than people actually dying from COVID. That's
an interesting question.
I'm not 100% sure. I can't state that for fact, but I can give you a number that kind of blew my fucking mind. Because I think that a state like California that is considered more progressive, and it's going to legalize, or excuse me, it's going to decriminalize the usage of these psychedelic drugs, which I'm just going to say first and foremost, I'm 100% for that. I don't think that somebody should be placed in jail because they got a couple of pills of ecstasy that they're going to take to Coachella.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's big business behind putting people in jail.
There is big business, but there could also be another business, and it could be a business that which we'll get into that a little bit later, as to how there could still be another business, but it still can aid people instead of place people in jail. But what I was going to say is that what kind of struck me, I was looking into the statistics of overall drug use in the United States, and what I found really interesting, almost 500,000 people die every year due to nicotine.
Really?
Yeah. 500,000.
You mean like cancer? Like they get cancer? Like how do you...
I cannot say whether or not the stats...
Dying from nicotine.
Because their addiction to nicotine has given them some sort of disease and then in turn kills them.
Okay.
500,000 people a year.
So interesting food for thought.
And this is a legal drug, socially accepted. There are so many people dying from smoking cigarettes, but because it has already been drilled into society that it's socially accepted, and now that there's warnings on the label, because back in the day there was no warnings. A lot of these companies were basically acting like they didn't know that cigarettes could kill you, or they didn't know, they were claiming that like you couldn't get addicted to nicotine. It was all that in a bag of chips. Let me just read some comments really quick. Edgar says, in the 80s, there was a crack epidemic and the Just Say No campaign started by Nancy Reagan. I remember that shit. And then Edgar also says, then programs like DARE and SPECDA were popular here in New York City. I 100% remember that. I remember
the DARE program.
I remember the DARE program. It came with a Black Panther and DARE was written in red. And then Star says, see 500,000 people, but they ain't got no nicotine vaccine. Sus.
So,
there's money in that.
We were talking about that and how the addiction to nicotine is beyond nicotine.
Yes, because
and they can't give you nothing for just a one solution fix to that, because
there's rituals.
It's addiction on different levels.
Yeah, there's rituals tied, personal rituals tied to nicotine. So when someone is trying to quit smoking, let's say, they are also dealing with the withdrawal of nicotine in addition to the additional chemicals that are in cigarettes and the habits that they form from smoking cigarettes. So whether it just be like putting something in their mouth, or the social interaction that they have when they're smoking a cigarette, or
just finding comfort in habits.
Yeah, in habits. So I think the example I gave you was people taking cigarette breaks at work. Yeah. And then they have to be able to where maybe at a certain time of day they did that, they also have to break the addiction of the nicotine and then break that fucking habit.
So when you combine the opportunity to create a situation where you're rewarding yourself or giving yourself some type of pleasure, that creates a habit within itself, something to look forward to. And then you add nicotine and its other chemicals on top of that, which are addictive.
Yeah.
It creates a pretty fucked up scenario.
Well, it's a recipe for disaster. You're set up. Cigarettes
it's like a 1-2 punch. Just pow, pow.
Cigarettes are set up for you to be addicted. That is plain and simple to understand. Nobody starts smoking unless you smoke and you're disgusted by it. Because I feel like sometimes that happens.
Some people are.
Yeah, well, I feel that can happen with any drug. You can try coffee for the first time because caffeine is 100% a drug. It's probably the most addictive drug out there, right next to nicotine. Because some of the most addictive drugs in the world are caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. And all of these are legal and socially accepted. These drugs are, when I tell you, so hard to withdraw from, because nicotine alters a chemical in your brain. So when you try to withdraw from it, your brain has to go back to a different state. So like now your body's feeling the withdrawal of it, and caffeine does the same thing to you. It gives you like more alertness, more awareness. So when you are withdrawn from it, your body is dealing with not having it, and now your brain is dealing with the not receiving that alteration.
Right. You're taking away the habit, the routine of that, going to that place for comfort. You know, so it's, man, that was a very, I want to call it clever product to put out on people to keep them coming back and buying more.
Well, I will quote Evo on this. Evo always likes to say, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Because let's keep it 100. These corporations don't give a shit about the American people or people for that matter. They're out there to make money. You know what they're worried about? They're worried about their bottom line. They want to know what they want to know what their profit gain is. They don't want to know if they're fucking killing people. And I actually think that decriminalization and moving towards legalization of certain drugs is actually going to mess with corporations, because there's big business in rehabilitation of drugs. There's big business in these drugs that are made to help people detox from shit, like or drugs, or the like something like Narcan that helps people from that can bring someone back from overdosing. Then you have things like methadone. There's big pharma.
And don't forget with the I want to say privatization. Is that am I saying that right? With the privatization, I feel like I just messed that up. Right? when they privatized the prison system, this adds to that. It aids that. You know, the ability to be able to go ahead and lock people up and charge them and send them to prison for like these, you know, crazy minor offenses and put them in the prison system is also feeding the prison system, which is also another business. I mean, you want to talk about just like making money off of the masses,
because they getting them tax dollars.
Yeah, they're getting a whole lot of dollars, you know. So it's a broken system.
It is a broken system, and I think that the steps that the United States is taking to destigmatize drugs is what is going to like project us into, like, you know, like propel us into the future.
Yeah.
Because let's have real talk. Making something illegal does not stop people from fucking doing it. No matter what it is. If it's prostitution illegal, people still getting their dick sucked. I'm sorry. I'm being vulgar, but I'm being 100% honest. So let's not act like that shit ain't happening. People are getting rubbing tugs, and it's happening. If you make drugs illegal, are people still not doing drugs? Like, why is it looked at like, if we can tell people that they can't do something and they're gonna get in prison for it, they're not gonna
figure out a way to do it. Especially if there's money to be made.
I literally listened to a podcast the other night it's a podcast that I may have mentioned on this live before, called Crimes of Passion. I just recently listened to a story about a gentleman who did a crime of passion. He shot this woman that he was in love with. And the judicial system at that time, do you know how they treated people who committed murder? They hung them, right? But they learned that hanging still was not deterring people from murdering. So you know what they started to do? They not only hung people back in the late 1700s, 1800s, they then dismembered your body publicly. Because a lot of people at that time started to become devout Christians, and they believed at that particular time, if your body was dismembered, that you were immediately going to hell. Your body had to be intact. It had to be whole. So they thought, okay, we're going to hang these people and we're going to dismember them. And then
instill fear in them.
To try to instill fear. People were still busting caps in people's asses. So try to instill fear, and making something the boogeyman is not going to stop a person from doing something that they want to do, whether it's illegal or not.
Right.
There needs to be education into what that facet is, so that people can really understand what a drug can or cannot do to you. Because when you paint it like, if you do that, you're going to die. And then you know what? A kid goes out and finds their friend dropping a pill, and they're like, "Yo, you doing that? And you still alive?" They were like, "My man, you gonna be good." And then they get it from some idiot, and they don't really understand what this drug can do to them. And to me, that's how sometimes addiction can happen, when something is placed in your hands from another fucking idiot, and then here you go enjoying a high, and then next thing you know, you're addicted
due to lack of experience and knowledge.
Exactly. Because things are made to be so fucking taboo.
Right.
I want to read some comments really quick. So, Star says sugar is just as addictive, 1000% true, and probably more dangerous. And then Edgar says nicotine is tied to the tobacco industry, the Winston and Ray J. Reynolds, and since they were billion-dollar companies, they brought politicians so there would be no laws or warning labels to put on cigarettes. Yeah, because they line in the pockets of politicians. Let's be real. That shit still happens till this day.
And it got so bad to the point where they were like, all right, we're going to allow you to keep selling these things. Just put a label on it, letting people know the dangers.
That you could potentially die from.
You could die. But here, buy it anyway.
And then Star says, laughing at Evo with the old school sayings. Edgar says, dismembering people after they were hanged goes back to Salem witch trials. Yes, because they believed that they were bewitched and that they had to like dismember their body. But I find it so interesting that like they were like, okay, we're going to hang these people and we're going to dismember them to try to stop people from murdering other people. People still were doing it.
Yeah.
So putting fear in people is not going to stop them from doing it. It may stop certain people, but it's not going to stop everybody.
I wonder if they were able to see at least a decline in the murder rate by doing what they were doing, hanging people and dismembering their bodies. That would be interesting to know, because I mean now you can track those statistics. Yeah. As to where back then, you know, who knew what the results were.
I'm just going to let you know right now that this drink is dangerous, because I'm drinking this tequila and it tastes like water.
Now you know why it's my favorite drink.
It tastes like water. I'm afraid.
This shit goes smooth like butter.
And Stephanie says, shaking my head. And Stephanie, welcome to the stream.
What's up, Stephanie?
Shaking my head, religion always uses fear for control. And then Edgar says, labels were put on cigarettes, and labels weren't put on cigarettes until the 2000s. Mm-hmm. That blows my mind, because it's only 2021. So that means we've only had labels on cigarettes for 2 decades.
I mean, listen, companies denying that their products are faulty, and I mean, I know obviously cigarettes you can't recall them, but like, you know, their products need to be recalled. You know, there's no secret that companies try to hide those things as much as they can to make as much money on that product as they can before they either have to modify it or shut it down completely, you know, or recall a bunch of stuff. So, you know, sometimes you gotta take that risk for the reward.
I would totally agree. And when you say take the risk for the reward, some information that you and I looked into is other countries that moved ahead and did decriminalization of all drugs. So a model that currently Oregon has used to do decriminalization of drugs, Oregon just moved fall of 2020, they moved to decriminalize all drugs, which will mean that if you're caught with a large possession of drugs, you can still be fined. And it depends on the level of possession. But if it's a small, like a personal use possession, you could receive a small fine. But Oregon is using the model that Portugal used, which I find so interesting, because what I didn't know is that Portugal just this year celebrated their 20th anniversary of decriminalization of all drugs. And why I find that so astounding, because that's 2 decades. And here we are in America, which is considered the most progressive country in the world. We're 20 years behind Portugal, which I find so interesting, because when it comes to education and our access to information, it's at our fingertips. You can open up a laptop and literally find out anything you want to know.
So here's an interesting theory. I'm just going to go out on a limb here, all right? And I'm just going to say something, right? But so we all know that the United States does not really have their people at best interest when it comes to business. You know, our country has the one of the worst regulations on food as to where other countries,
Mm-hmm.
their regulations are very tight on food to try to protect the people.
Especially in Europe.
As to where, like, here in the United States, they're very loose with that stuff, right? So if the result of the United States adapting Portugal's policies would mean people would live longer,
Mm-hmm.
the organizations that are in charge of leading the task force on the war on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
would their demand would all of a sudden decrease. The jails would all of a sudden see a decrease in incarcerations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure that they would be inclined to just go ahead and cut the flow to those things.
But you don't think that if you cut the flow to things that are so minuscule like that, then they can focus on then these entities can then focus on larger problems that we have in this country, or they could be realigned somewhere else. So for example, in Portugal, their focus now, they look at drugs as a health concern rather than a criminal concern.
Right.
So
I agree with you.
So they're putting efforts into education and preventative measures, and then other measures that will help people if they find out that they do have an addiction.
Yeah, but you have to understand. What I'm saying is that
There's still business to be had.
Yes, but when you have these current businesses, and like Edgar mentioned before, lining the pockets of politicians, trying to keep things to where the money is flowing in their direction for as long as possible, as long as these people are in power and as long as they have influence, they're going to try to keep the river flowing.
So, but I feel like that model's broken because, like, if they're not realizing that there's still money to be made on the other side of it through education, through preventative measures.
Okay,
because if you legalize drugs, like for example, there's 18 states currently, right, including Washington D.C., that have legalized marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
There's tax money to be made on that. So these politicians and these organizations, they can still make money. If they're still going to be using these antiquated fucking medieval ways of thinking about how they should govern drugs.
I think you're missing my point.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm a little fired up.
If I run jails, that's my business. I'm in the business of running jails, incarcerations. You're saying there's money to be had in these other ventures in education and whatsoever. That means that I would have to change my whole business model so that I could be taking advantage of what's to come. I'd have to shut down my prisons. I'd have to, downscale. I'd have to start investing money into other types, and I'd have to learn a whole nother area of business when I could just keep greasing the pockets of what I'm greasing and keeping my current business flowing.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying? So as long as those powers are in play and they have those influences, I think for as long as they can, they're going to try to keep that avenue open.
That is so frustrating to me, and I had to listen to you again. I'm gonna read some comments. Star says that goes to show you how simple people are. They had no idea what they were smoking, but they did that shit anyway because everyone else was. And Melissa, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. And Edgar says RJ Reynolds is shifting from traditional tobacco cigarettes to vapes. Southern states like North Carolina are losing revenue because of the less need for tobacco farms. Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Yes. So in that case, a whole nother industry popped up from underneath them, and that's the if you can't beat them, join them.
And again, my brain just did that thing that it always does. When you say popped up, I just thought about in Mulan when Mushu goes and they popped up the ground.
Disney,
like
what have
daisies.
you done to my wife?
Disney is a drug, and I'm addicted to that shit.
That is your drug for sure, without a doubt. Yes, absolutely.
And it starts saying hi to Melissa, which I think is so awesome that people know each other on the live. That makes me so happy.
So here's some interesting facts, right? So
give me some facts.
Let's talk about let's dial it back a bit to the beginning of our stream a little bit when we're talking about the war on drugs, right?
Oh God.
So, the war on drugs technically started after the Prohibition, right? Where an organization led by Harry Anslinger was formed by the government to stop alcohol from being bootlegged. Once that came to an end, this man, as part of the military, now needed something else to drive his focus on.
Oh.
Okay? So what he did was he started targeting weed. And even went as far as naming it marijuana. Like that name marijuana supposedly came from the target of weed, and they named it marijuana to make it sound Mexican. And they started targeting
his organization, because when you say they,
the organization.
And what was it called again? It was just headed by this. It was headed by this
guy.
Yeah,
they were called the Untouchables.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Yeah, tell me about it. And so, working with newspapers, he created hysteria around cannabis on American youth and proclaimed an invasion of marijuana smoking Mexicans assaulting white women.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to clip that for TikTok, and it's going to go insane. Yeah. People are going to be like, Mexicans attacking white women.
Yeah, and then so ensuing public anxiety led to the drug being banned.
Ensuing public
anxiety led to the drug being banned. All right. And so time and time again, this tactic was used to create hysteria and war on drugs.
Yeah, because this is what I was saying before. They're painting shit to be the boogeyman.
Yes.
They're making people think that if you do this or you use this or you're associated with people that use this type of shit, it's the boogeyman. Mm-hmm. It's going to kill your kids, hide your wife, because they coming out here, they getting everybody.
They're getting everybody. And so
and that's that bullshit. And it's so easy for people to believe that because, unfortunately, a lot of people will follow suit instead of questioning what is being told to them. Because I could tell you from when I was younger, I saw drugs being used in my neighborhood, and I saw what drugs could potentially do to certain people. But let's keep it real. I never seen no strung out weed head. I never seen nobody on the corner strung out because they smoking weed.
No, it just seemed like a easy target because of how much of the consumption.
Yeah.
There was so much consumption out there that it was just an easy target for him to start a war on.
But that's my point, is like when you paint things this way, people are easily led. You know, like I hate to use the term sheep, but you know, it's easy to herd people to be like, oh, if you let this into your life, these things potentially could happen to you. You're letting in the boogeyman if you associate yourself with marijuana.
Right.
And I still feel like to this day, there still is a stigma on marijuana where maybe one person may look at somebody like, oh, you smoke weed? And I'm like, yeah, I smoke weed. Is there something wrong with that? Ma'am, that finishes a bottle of wine a night? Like, tell me what the difference is. They're both.
Oh, because wine is legal.
It's socially accepted.
Yes.
So weed is moving towards that to be socially accepted. I think it's just going to take generations because prohibition was in the 1920s. So we are 100 years past that at this point now. Look how, like, it didn't take that long for it to be socially accepted, because I want to say, you know, I've only been around since the 80s, but you know, since then I know that it's been socially accepted. So it didn't take that long for people to just be like, oh, it's fine. The government says it's fine.
Well, what ended up happening with prohibition is that mafia started forming to organize the bootlegging and the production of this, and so crime really started to rise, and they realized that they messed up.
Well, that's the same thing that we're having problems now with the cartels.
Right.
If we cut off their ability to pump drugs into the United States for illegal use, we cut off their business.
Right. I mean, it's essentially they started this whole thing because in the 1900s, drugs were mainly legal. You could go to the pharmacy and just get basically any type of drug you wanted.
If I'm not mistaken, back in the day, they used to give this thing called like the mommy pill, and it was methamphetamines, and it was to calm women, like if they were like experiencing like stress due to like having multiple children. Yo, they were basically giving them like small amounts of meth. You know, would I have maybe appreciated that?
I mean, listen, somebody obviously abused it and died, and then so there you go. And now they have to like, you know, stop prescribing it.
Yeah, but you can't. you can't look at the abuse of one person and then take it away from
I'm
everybody.
exaggerating that.
No, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean. That's
probably
an exaggeration of the truth. But I'm sure at some point it became an issue. You know, where people were abuse started to happen, and it became an issue, and they had to stop prescribing it.
But people abuse cigarettes. You don't see them stopping that industry. So I just want to read some comments. So Stephanie says, mass pesticide spray on tobacco products. Like and people are smoking this shit, and they're probably addicted to that too. And then Edgar says, yes, Stephanie, chemicals like DDT were sprayed on tobacco, which then made cigarettes much more deadly.
He says DDT. I think when you say DDT, I think of the wrestling move, the DDT.
Yeah. Oh, good. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that my brain goes somewhere else. And then Star says the war on drugs was a hoax. Of course it was. And then Stephanie says all about natural flowers. Listen, we are advocates of marijuana in this house. I never ever felt like marijuana was a problematic drug ever. I have very open and real conversations with our kids about marijuana. Our daughter's still a little too young, because we have conversations with her now that are a little open about like sexuality and about, feminine things. And then she goes and runs and tells her friends and like misconstrues what we're saying. So like we're still getting there. But like our older sons, from when they were like of age, we were just like, this is what it is. You gonna do this or not? And this is what it can and cannot do to you.
Right.
And I want you to understand this information so that if it's ever presented to you, because you cannot be with your kids at all times of the day, especially my boys, that they would go out and they would skate and they would hang out in parks. It was around them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we had these real conversations about them, real conversations with them about what marijuana could and could not do for you, and why it potentially isn't a good choice. Because I think you had the best analogy or like reasoning behind why a young adult should not smoke marijuana. And I remember you saying to our oldest, Anthony, you were like, if you smoke marijuana is an adult thing. So if you're ready to be an adult, you better start paying for yourself. Because there are consequences to using drugs.
There are.
And you may then have to come out your pocket for these consequences. So if you can afford to pay for these consequences, by all means. But I ain't paying for shit.
Yeah.
So if you get caught with a little bag of weed, mommy and daddy ain't coming to get you. So you better be able to make those adult decisions, which I thought was such a good way for you to present it to them.
I had to wake them up, I mean, because, a lot of people, they go into that, that realm and not realizing that they're making decisions that potentially their parents are going to have to come deal with because they can't handle it.
And that's my point. Oh, and Lauren is saying, mommy's little helper. Yes, I knew there was a pill that they were given. Shit. Because I remember after we had Ava, I had a C-section, and our doctor, our OBGYN, she prescribed me Percocets. And I remember people coming to visit me, and they were like, Gina, you look so good. How are you feeling? I was like, I'm fucking high.
Yeah, I'm great.
I feel great. They're like, you just had a C-section. I know. I'm on these perks. I'm chilling. So, like, that was mommy's little helper.
Yeah, that definitely helped out a lot.
For real. And then Edgar saying, yes, cocaine was legal in the early 1900s and was available by prescription and later on over the counter. And the cat wants to weigh in. She does. Chloe is
she wants some cat marijuana.
Marijuana.
Marijuana, which
Chloe's the OG.
Yeah, well, which is what we call that's the catnip here in the house.
I totally forgot that we had a catnip named marijuana.
Marijuana, yeah.
Excuse me.
So, moving along, after that, Black Americans were stigmatized. Yes, Black Americans were stigmatized on accounts of heroin in the 1950s.
The government is always trying to find a scapegoat, someone to pin something on, to make someone the bad person.
That's what I'm saying. Like I want to just go through the list of this model that the government used to create hysteria, to fund war on drugs. So in the 1600s, it was the hippies with their psychedelics. They
in
were
the 1600s.
in the 1960s. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I was like 1600s.
In the 1960s, it was the hippies with their psychedelics, and they were targeted because they opposed the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and the Vietnam War was
money.
Making that money.
Yep. And then in the 1970s, there was an inner city black Americans who used crack cocaine who received the brunt,
of course,
of penalties. I mean, penalties that were over 100 times higher than cocaine, despite their
the small amount.
Despite the small amount, but despite the equivalency in their chemical composition.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, because of the marketing that they used to instill fear, they were able to amplify these penalties. I mean, they saw a window of opportunity and they went with it. You have a drug that's practically the same. And because you possess one and use one over the other.
Yeah, because you take one chemical compound and you alter it. Now it's something totally different.
Right. And again, because of the way that they schedule drugs based on usage, because crack cocaine became such an epidemic, they were able to amplify the penalties, which was just big business. And then now lastly, crystal meth, which is the targeting of poor whites. So it's like over and over and over again. They're just using these scare tactics and creating these campaigns to fund this war on drug. And it's just business on top of business on top of business. So going back to what you were saying, sure, why not? Why not just legalize all of it and create this education system? You're realizing the funding that's going on right now and the money that's being funneled into preventing all of this, into incarcerating, into the court systems and the fines and all that stuff. Like, that whole system's got to be broken down.
So I was talking to you earlier about how I think or what I think would be a good model to move towards legalization of all drugs, because I don't think it just can happen at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, well, of course not.
So what I suggested is if you then start kind of like how Portugal has done it, which is starting by decriminalization, which is removing people going to jail for small possession of drugs. And then from that, you then you potentially legalize one of the drugs like marijuana. You then take the tax dollars from the legalization of marijuana. You take that money, a portion of it goes to the education and the prevention, and then in case of need of, if there is addiction, you take it and you funnel it into those programs. Sure. And then the government takes their fucking cut because they can still make money from it. So now when you go and you move from marijuana, because marijuana is a leaf. So then when you go into the other drugs that are chemically altered, so now pharma can step in and say, we will make these drugs pure where they could be administered in a safe environment. And what I mean by safe environment is, from that podcast that I listened to with this journalist, Michael Pollan with Joe Rogan, he made a really good point when he talked about how psychedelics were at one time used. So, for example, Native Americans, when they used to use peyote, it was used in a very ritual format. So maybe there was some type of ceremony that was happening. Maybe somebody was getting married. They would use peyote and there would be an elder present, and there would be other people from the Indian community that were present, and it was administered to someone with the regard of, okay, maybe this person's never done it before. We're all going to support them in this journey. It wasn't like, here's this drug, buddy, see you later. So it was done in a way where the entire community understood that this person was now going to use this drug. So they looked out for their safety. So he made a really good point into saying, we shouldn't definitely just rip that, because that would be cultural appropriation, but we should find a way to take that same type of format and implement it into the United States that will work for our people. It needs to be done safe. So I said the example I used was like, maybe if it was like a lounge where you went and you could have a mushroom trip. There was EMT on site. There was a person that was well versed in the chemical composition of what mushrooms can and can't do. And a person, or maybe the same person, understood how it should be administered to a person based on their weight, their height, and maybe their sex. And these are jobs.
These are great solutions. I mean, these are great suggestions, right? But we have to keep in mind that we live in a country that has silenced, quote unquote, allegedly, people who have cures for things that are epidemics.
Like Dr. Seba?
Hey, I ain't say it, but the proof is in the pudding. So, it almost sounds like wishful thinking.
Just so you know, I bodied this.
Yeah, you did.
I'm scared for my life.
You should be.
Yeah, because I'm going to get up from this live and just fall off the... And optimistically cynical, welcome to the stream. And of course, the first comment you drop is...
Yeah.
Off the fucking wall.
Wouldn't expect anything less.
Right?
So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I get. So like you gotta wonder when does the scale tip? Because it seems that Portugal, and I'm using them as an example because they're the one like leading the charge in this.
Well, not just them. There are other countries that have done the same, but Portugal is.
They're like the model.
A lot of people are using their model.
Yeah, they're using their model. So I said like they're
like Oregon.
Yes. So at some point, for whatever reason, the interest of the people became greater than the benefit of the current situation.
Well, I think it's going to, unfortunately, the type of business structure that the government works on is this type of pyramid. It's going to have to come from the top. And that's unfortunate because the government should work for the people on the bottom. Some of the best business structures are this way, when they actually care about the people, when it comes from the people to the top. I think it's going to have to take a person in charge, maybe POTUS, I don't know, to lead the journey into either decriminalization of other scheduled drugs, in addition to then the legalization of other drugs. But since most presidents only get 1 or 2 terms, 8 years ain't shit.
Right.
So it's literally going to have to be.
I think that's like that by design. They can't stay in there too much to shake things up, because then next, bring the next thirsty blood in the door so we could grease them up.
It's crazy to me that we can't. Okay, so I think one of the things I want to say is that, yes, Portugal's...
I'm sorry, what I meant was bloodsucker.
Yeah.
I said just blood.
Portugal's a model for decriminalization of drugs. But I said to you, one of the problems that I thought would be in the United States is, in Portugal, the majority of people that live in Portugal are Portuguese. In the United States, you have all walks of life. You have people from all backgrounds, people from all countries. So to try to get a unified feel of drugs as a whole is going to be so difficult. Yeah. So you have different races, you have different religions, you have different cultures where people view drugs very differently. Yeah. Some are very free with it and some are just like, that is a fucking no. How do you find that middle ground?
I'll tell you how it can happen. And I'm only saying this because this seems to be the only way that real change is made. Is if a whole another industry erupts from underneath this whole thing,
or something like COVID happens.
I mean, yes, COVID, but what I'm saying is that, like, I want to say, like, let's just say that for some reason, like, there is an industry, right? There's all of a sudden somebody with just a ton of money starts investing into this, right, and starts greasing the right people, and and getting certain politicians on their side and making this a business, where all of a sudden the interest in that business, the potential to make money, is greater than the current system that we have right now. Then what you'll see is either one of two things. You'll see them either shut down or join.
Who's them?
The current system right now that we have, okay. Right? They're going to either have to beat them or join them. Or somehow, some way, they're setting up. Because it just seems like with all this legalization that's going on, that there's no way that the smart money, the big money, that they're not preparing themselves for the next wave to come.
Okay.
That they're not strategically exiting as these new laws are being put into place so that they can be able to take advantage of this new thing that's going on. So I kind of feel like that this can all be like part of the game.
So I'm going to tell you the entire time you were saying that to me, I'm going to tell you what that means. You mean to tell me that we need to get Elon Musk on board? Elon Musk loves fucking pot. We just need to get Elon Musk to co-sign other drugs.
Elon Musk has a lot on his plate right now. I'll tell you right now.
I know he does. He's just trying to get to the fucking moon at our current time. But if we can get Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, which it kind of pisses me off that I would think that way, but if we can get people like them to be on board, their influence is heavy.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes, they got a heavy influence, but I think that there's a lot bigger money and a lot smarter money out there than them two. You know, they are not the richest people out in the planet. They are.
Jeff Bezos is like Elon Musk. I think is the richest man in the world.
No, he's not.
Really?
No, he's not.
Okay, I'm gonna read some comments really quick. So Melissa says, I was offered mushrooms while waiting online for the Simpsons ride at Universal. I would have taken, if I didn't have any children, I would have been like, give me them mushrooms.
I'm not going to confirm or deny that I've been to quite a few theme parks on very, very influential stuff.
And optimistically cynical says, I took 4 grams of mushrooms a few months ago. I thought it wasn't working until I found myself 45 minutes into J. Cole music videos. That sounds like an amazing trip to me. And then Edgar says, breaking news from World of Hip Hop. Biz Markie passed away from complications from diabetes. He was 57.
Ouch.
Damn. Another one, another legend. And Melissa says, how did it work for Amsterdam with the legalization of drugs and prostitution? It's a controlled industry. There's rules and regulations that you have to follow as a provider and a buyer. And then optimistically cynical says, John, I can't read the last name, has money in the weed after being an anti-weed speaker of the House. It's all money related. That's 100% true. That's why I said we need to get Elon Musk involved. Because if we get Elon Musk involved, he gonna be like, listen, I know I said I was gonna go to the moon, but before we do that, can we do a little bit of acid? Because then maybe we could go to the moon without going to the moon.
Unless Elon Musk stands to benefit financially from anything that he says, it ain't coming out his mouth.
Well, then maybe he should start his own business.
He's got multiple businesses.
I know he does. Well, listen, he just had a baby. Maybe his kid could be the heir. And Frank, welcome to the stream. In other countries, they give out needles and regulate the weed and other narcotics. And then what? Okay.
I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah. You know what it is too? Like, I'm kind of looking at the screen like a little funny right now. Maybe it's that tequila that's creeping up on me.
Tequila got you nice.
So, I just want to know your stance on this, Evo, because I asked you this earlier today. Do you not think, or what is your stance on legalization of drugs? Like, do you think all drugs should be legal? Or I just need to know what your stance on that. But before you answer that, because I know you need to think about that for a second. I believe that all drugs should be legal. But before we get to that, I think there should be 2 decades of education and preventative measures to really educate the United States population on the real conversation of drugs and what they can and cannot do for you and how they can help or harm you. Because we do know for a fact that there are drugs that can help you. I wrote a paper in college about ecstasy and how it helps soldiers with PTSD and previous rape victims to get over these horrible experiences that they went through. So drugs can help, but drugs can also harm. So I think that there needs to be immense conversation of what drugs are as a whole and stop being painted as the boogeyman. And then once we move towards legalization, there should be safe environments for these drugs to be done with people who are educated in it. And then there should also be emergency services. That's my take on it.
I honestly feel that yes, in some sense they should be legal, right?
Okay.
But I'm concerned about the ability for people to abuse these drugs. Mm-hmm. Because they can be dangerous. They can be dangerous when abused, and they can be hurtful. And people do things on drugs when they're abusing them that they normally wouldn't do as regular people.
Correct.
So the type of characters that are created when the people are allowed to abuse these substances that wouldn't normally exist is concerning to me. And the ability to allow that to happen, to create an avenue, it's concerning to me what is going to come down that avenue once you open that door. But I do believe, I do believe that on a microdosing level, yes, there should be some type of market for that. I believe that things in small quantities can not only be beneficial, but like a great experience.
I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So in that sense,
I'm pro drugs.
Yes, I believe that if we could have a society where people can legalize drugs and be on and use them on a microdose level, to where they're having a pleasant experience and not abusing them, not getting too far beyond the point, and just having that pleasant experience that you actually get, because there is a sweet spot when you take drugs that it's a pleasant experience.
Well, let's just be clear. There are drugs that are legal currently. Alcohol is a drug and is legal. Caffeine is a drug and it's legal.
And these things, when they're abused, they create very dangerous situations.
Correct.
So that's only my concern. So I feel like when you legalize all drugs, there's going to be that avenue that's open, that this is something that the country's going to have to deal with, or the world's going to have to deal with. And so I'm concerned about that.
And I appreciate your concern, and that's where I think education comes in.
Yes, even though
and that's why I said 2 decades.
Even with education, I just still feel like that people are going to push the boundaries of what they're capable of. But
that is humanity.
That's humanity, yes. So all I'm saying is that is concerning to me. If you have a bunch of people, not a bunch of people, if you have a society that all of a sudden is now able to do something, they're all going to have to want to know what their own personal limit is. I feel like they're all going to want to like at least push it to the point where they're like, whoa, all right, that was a little too much for me. I know not to go there anymore. And every person has to experience that. So if you amplify that by 7 point something billion people in the world, like, what do we got? Like, what's still going to be the result of that?
Well, we have Portugal as a model, and it's not going the way the concerns that you have are not happening. I'm going to read some comments, and then I'm actually going to step off the live for 1 minute. I actually have to use the ladies' room.
Okay.
But I want to read some comments. So wait, hold on. Let me go back. So Edgar says, now back to the topic. Shrooms, LSD, and roller coasters are fun mix. And he says, I'm speaking from experience.
Edgar, cheers.
Okay, so, and then Optimistically Cynical is making a Biz Marquee joke. And then Frank said, PSP, welcome to the stream. Drugs are bad, K. Cool. You know what's funny? I just had severe deja vu when I read that comment. PSP, you were meant to be on this live with us. And Frank says, I really like what Gina is saying. Allowing for time for educate everyone is the way to go. Gina's spitting right now. Yo, I be trying. I'll be up on here on my soapbox. And Lauren says, yeah, but aren't dispensaries really expensive? Like more than street drugs, even if it's legalized, street dealers and illegal operations will likely still exist. I don't know for certain if that is true, and I've never been to a dispensary, so I can't say for certain if it is or isn't legal.
It is. It's a lot more expensive.
But what I will say is it's going to take time, because at one time everything is expensive. Remember when flat screen TVs first came out? Them shits cost you $10,000. Now you get a flat screen for $299. So it takes time for these things to level out. The inflation will start right away. And then Frank says dispensaries are expensive, but staff that work there can get you a strain and weed that worked for you. Street stuff can be weak or mixed. So that was like my whole conversation behind it. Having people there that are educated in that particular drug so that you are getting what is suited for you. I'm going to step off and let you read the rest of the comments, and I'll be right back. I'm actually going to get some more tequila.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm going to use the lady.
You living dangerously. All right. So, let's see. Lauren is saying, I hear that, Frank. I'm thinking that someone abusing drugs, an addict, will probably still go on the street. I really don't know, though. And Optimistically Cynical says it's also better, or it's a lot better. So, I mean, I would love to see a world in a perfect world where this thing wasn't an issue, because I mean, I've had my fair share of experimentation with, with illicit drugs. And me personally, I've always strived to find that sweet spot. I never liked going overboard. I never liked, being in a situation where it was too much, but I think that, there's just that you have to find out where your own boundaries are. You have to find out what your own susceptibility is. Lauren says, the thing is, dispensaries spend millions on security, so the costs are expensive there. In some places like Colorado, hire ex-FBI sharpshooters. I saw this on Vice. I don't know. That's actually pretty interesting. And in addition to that, Lauren, I really feel that there's always going to be something that exists in dispensaries and the legalization of drugs that doesn't exist in street drugs, which is the middleman, which is the government. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why it's more expensive. I mean, it has to go through some type of logistics to get to where it gets to. You have all types of people in the middle, and then now you're adding the government.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking the same pretty much system that exists in the illegal drug system, and you're just legalizing it and adding another man with his hand out saying, F you, pay me.
I was going to say
F you, pay me.
How many comments did you read?
So the last thing I read was Lawrence, optimistically cynical, second to last is next.
Okay, so you can trust LSD from a regulated store. You can't sue your drug dealer. That's a really valid point.
And that's one benefit from the legalization of it, is quality stuff.
It's quality control.
Yes, the quality control.
So Melissa says it's like any other thing. I know that my drink limit is 4, so it just takes from that experience. And that, Melissa, that's such a valid point. And let's be real. Was anybody ever educated about the true effects of alcohol? No, you were just told not to fucking drink and drive.
The question is, Melissa, how many times did you black out drunk, go before you realized that 4 is your limit? How many times you woke up with hangovers and went too far? Well,
being Melissa's friend for more than 30 years, I can honestly say I've never seen Melissa go blackout drunk, but definitely waking up with a hangover knowing, oh, maybe I went too hard.
That was too much. You know what I mean? So and again, alcohol, the fact that it's like, all right, when we were talking about this earlier, right? When you're taking chemicals and you're adding them to your body for a chemical reaction, everybody's chemical composition is made up differently. So when you're adding those chemicals to someone's body, you're going to get a specific chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. Some people react, like they go to the moon when they take certain substances. And other
the moon, Alice.
And other people are just like, oh, that was like, no, that was disgusting. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So you also have to take into consideration that there's going to be this, with legalization, there's going to be this huge amplification of those type of scenarios. And I'm not saying that like that should stop this whole thing from happening. Yeah. It's just concerning.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to roll right into our top 5 for tonight because this conversation was heavy.
Yeah, it was definitely heavy.
And I want to have some fun now because honestly, we're like, this is like the ending to like a perfect fucking day. We had a beautiful day at the beach today with some family and we came home and we just got ready for the live. And honestly, this is just like the icing on the cake for us.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read these last comments and we'll roll right into it. And then Eva will introduce the top 5 for tonight. And optimistically cynical, they need the security because federal law dictates dispensaries can't use banks. That means no credit cards, no debit at all, cash. That's why they need security. And Lauren says, no sweet spot for me, unfortunately. 8.5 years sober. It's nothing for me. One day at a time or total destruction. Bless you all, sweet spot drug users. And Lauren, I thank you so much for sharing that because that is a very personal story. And I salute you for sharing that with us.
So, just to touch on that, there are people who can function very, very well with, recreational use. Mm-hmm. And I was one of those people. Where Monday through Friday, I went to work, I did my thing. Mm-hmm. And for many years, I knew what I found where my limits were on things and I stayed within those limits. But but it was just, it wasn't until one day that I came across something that with the chemical reaction was something that was very intense, and it became something that went a little bit beyond my control. So that's when total destruction happened.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I mean, I sympathize with you, because it's like, yes, there you're gonna reach that point where it's like you're gonna meet your match, and there's something it's gonna take total control over you, and that it's gonna be, there is no sweet spot. And then that's when you gotta just, that's it. You gotta hang up that jersey. There's no more dancing with that devil. But I would like to, going back to this, Lauren, this is why I say microdosing. I feel like that if there could be a microdosing society where things are just given on a very light level, that.
But you have to understand, Evo, like I said, that comes with education.
Yeah.
Because people are not going to know how to properly microdose.
Right. Of course. I'm just saying, adding to what you're saying.
Oh, you were adding.
I'm putting this on the back of what it is that you're saying. Yes, absolutely. Because I agree with what you're saying. I think that, that it could be a good thing, but in this type of scenario where it would be on a microdosing, because there's been so many benefits that you've heard of, like microdosing and things you can do therapeutically with allowing people to microdose, and with treating like trauma and PTSD and things like that, and allowing the microdose psychedelics to open up parts of the mind that are being suppressed, and allowing people to express themselves when they're really shut down. I mean, these are great benefits, and so I see the great in it, and
by the way, just to finish off, Melissa said it took her over a decade to figure that out.
See, there you go.
So, top five, dead or alive. Let's get into it.
I don't even know why I said that. So our top 5 this week is.
Dun 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 dun. Give a drum roll.
Top 5 Munchie foods when you're high.
Right? Because when you smoke a little doobie, in the words of my great uncle, you trying to eat.
Yes, you trying to munch the fuck out. You trying to feed the monster that has erupted up inside.
What did Cat Williams say? Weed makes you sleepy, happy, hungry.
Happy, sleepy. No, happy, hungry, sleepy.
Happy, hungry, sleepy?
Yeah, you get happy, hungry, and sleepy.
Yeah, so you get the munchies. So we're about to rate the top 5 munchie foods, and I'm going to just disclose. This is our top 5. So please do not fight us on our options. You are more than welcome to sound off on what your top 5 munchies are.
Let us know what yours are. So this is ours, and coming in at number 5, this is particularly one of my favorite.
Yeah, this is. I wouldn't say that.
5.
I wouldn't say that this. I enjoy this.
I love this. This is my go-to. This is the first thing I'll go to, only because, especially, like.
Is it the first thing you go to?
It would if I have a choice. Yes, if you line up all of these things that we're about to line up on the table, right?
Really?
This will be the first thing I go for.
Okay.
Why? Because it is the most natural and the most healthiest and the most savory.
Oh my God, Evo trying to be healthy
in one, and that's cold fruit. Man, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this, in the days where you were smoking weed, but
doing an edible.
I have found that cold fruit is so refreshing, so explosive in taste, and it's so healthy that I don't mind going off the deep end. I don't feel guilty.
I'm just gonna say this. Oh, Lauren said that's lame.
I figured that. Listen, and that's
Lauren,
okay.
And Lauren, just so we're clear, I really wanted to fight him on this number 5. But I will say this in Evil's defense. One time we smoked some weed, and he bought up a bag of cold grapes. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you, it was the best
that shit hit
fucking grapes I've ever. I remember I just was eating them and looking at him like, what did you just give me? I felt crazy.
Yo, let me tell you something.
Because I've never had like a cold grape when I was high.
Yes, and Melissa, listen, passion fruit, all day. And you know what's funny is that I just I just stumbled upon this one day. I think I was high and I was like rumbling through the fridge and I was just so hungry and I grabbed a piece of cold fruit and I put it in my mouth and it was just like eruption.
It was like the Big Bang in your eyes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
All right, so Lauren said it was lame. So
let me move on from this before I get shot.
Yeah.
All right.
Black guy.
Yeah, black guy. All right. Coming in at number 4 is the classic, never fails, sober, high, or whatever, motherfucking cup of noodles.
Yo, cup of noodles? Listen.
This shit right here.
And when you're high, you potentially may overcook it and then the styrofoam be leaning. Oof. You still eating that shit though.
You getting that extra chemical high from that.
You said you getting
extra chemical high. You getting some melted styrofoam in your soup.
If you want to really take it to the next level, you get some crackers and you crush them up and you throw them in the soup so that you get even more carbs. Because not only you're getting about 900 milligrams of sodium in this one cup.
Your whole day's worth of serving of sodium in one cup.
I don't even know what that
900 milligrams is the daily.
Is it?
I believe it's the daily.
You're getting it in one cup of noodles, but you want to add the saltine crackers in with it. And if you really high, you may have 2 of these shits.
Is it me, or did you enjoy like the noodles still kind of like not cooked all the way?
A little hard. That's what she said.
That's exactly what she said. She enjoyed it a little hard.
And by the way, Lauren says, honestly, it sounds good, just not what I expected.
I know. And listen, I knew.
Lauren, me neither.
I just had to
try it.
I felt like I needed to go on a limb just to put you guys on to something that maybe you hadn't known about. So next time, Lauren, obviously this doesn't suit you because you're on the straight and narrow. But if any of you next time ever get the munchies,
but honestly,
get yourself some cold fruit.
Frozen grapes are amazing.
You'll thank me later. Pineapples, whatever, kiwis, melons, grapes, passion fruit.
Evo is he's prophesizing.
Here's the thing, right?
He's I forget what I'm trying to say.
Here's the thing, right? The fact that I'm just naming these off like that just tells you that I found one and I hit the hills running. I had to try every single one that I could cold, and I tried them all. Watermelon, oh God. Anyway, all right. It's too much.
But the grapes, for me, that shit hit.
Yeah, that shit hit different.
Yeah, so cup of noodles is number 4 because like I told you, I may even eat 2 of these shits.
Yo, so good.
All right, let's move on to number 3.
Coming in at number 3.
I'm excited for number 3.
You were definitely excited about this one.
Because, oh no, wait. Because the next 3 are mine. Like, I'm just going to let everyone, all the ladies and gentlemen in our audience know right now, the next 3 top 5 munchies, I potentially will smash all 3 of these in one night.
It could happen. It could definitely happen. Especially if I'm going to make it for you. So, coming in at number 3 is grilled cheese and French fries.
Melissa said it earlier on today. As soon as she said it, it was Melissa's first thing. Grilled cheese. And oh my God. The cheese, the butter, fries. Come on. And nowadays we got air fryers.
Yep.
Your fries could be done in 8 minutes. Okay? No more putting them in the toaster oven. No more putting them in the oven or frying them.
Nah.
Like, listen, oil's the devil. Like, the oil when it pops is literally Satan when it comes out and gets you. So the fact that you could throw fries in the air fryer and then be making 2 grilled cheeses at the same time, oh my God, that shit is sex on a plate.
That shit making me hungry right now.
And if you really want to get fancy, you may even order fries from the diner and get disco fries.
The disco fries.
Disco fries.
Man, the first time I had disco fries, I was like, yo, where's this been all my life?
I
had no idea.
Disco fries is like sex on a plate.
I didn't have disco fries until like later on in my life.
I think I introduced you to them.
You did. It was with you.
And then Eva one time trying to introduce me to some mystery ass cheese. He was like, yo, this place is fucking amazing.
All right, so Lauren, listen, you got to back me up on this,
God.
Lauren. All right.
Lauren, please don't back him up
Lauren,
on this.
I took Gina one day to Red Tower. And like Red Tower used to be the spot. And God, you know what's sad is that we went to Red Tower, Lauren, and it looked like a ghost town. I mean, it looked like the place was just...
Because it's disgusting.
It looked like the place was surviving on hopes and dreams. It really did. And I wanted to go there because I hadn't had the cheese fries in a while, and like that was literally something that we did after school, after the football games, whatever. You went to Red Tower and you got junk food. It was straight junk food. The shit was trash. I mean, it was comfort junk food, and for me, the cheese fries used to hit. They had the mystery cheese. It was in a machine, like they hit a lever and like it came out and it was liquidy as hell.
And Lauren says, Red Tower, fuck yes.
Thank you. Oh my God. Yo, Lauren, man. I have been out on a limb by myself, like ready to walk off a plank with this Red Tower shit for like
so Lauren,
for as long as we've been together.
Next time Eva wants to go to Red Tower, I'm like, yo, do me a favor,
call Lauren.
Because I ain't going there with you. I'm not. Yo, I'll never forget. By the way, I have a mosquito bite or a bite from the beach today, and it is oof.
Let me tell you, Lauren. I took her and our kids over to Red Towers.
And we just
look. She said those cheese fries were so good. I guess it was just a high school thing.
We looked at Evo as he ate these things.
Looked at me like I was gonna grow another arm. As I was eating those cheese fries. Let me tell you something. I ate those goddamn cheese fries.
Because listen, the guy that served it to us, he looked like what movie was that? I want to say he looked like Jabba the Hutt. He looked like some big guy with a dirty stained T-shirt. But maybe it was Men in Black.
Yo, they had a cheeseburger called the Fat Boy Cheeseburger.
Okay, listen to me.
That was like that. That's how you were at the spot. You went there. You said, "Let me get a Fat Boy."
And Lauren says, "I have not been in so long. I don't know if it would be the same."
Yeah,
Lauren, I'm just gonna tell you that. Stay away from that place because that's not cheese.
Yo, something happened, Lauren.
It's coming out of a machine. It's not cheese.
They lost their mojo. I don't know. Every time I drive by there, the parking lot's so empty.
I don't think they lost their mojo. I think that we have just matured and we realized.
No, you understand? Like that place used to stay packed.
Look, Stephanie says Evo like little pies and watery cheese. Yo, the fact that Stephanie remembers that you like little.
Oh my God.
Evo, he's like a fat kid love cake, like that line. Yeah. Like there's like
your boy used to eat.
Yeah.
Your boy used to eat. I mean, listen, I watch what I eat now, but I used to definitely eat.
Yes, but even though you watch what you eat, you still eat.
Yeah, I still eat. You know what I mean? Gotta work out, so I gotta gotta maintain my caloric intake.
Oh my God. All right, let's move on to number 2 for the night because Evo over here.
There goes Lauren, Fat Boy with cheese. Thank you. Oh my God.
And listen, we're actually a little ahead of schedule tonight, which makes me like I feel stellar about that. This is number 2.
So coming in at number 2, this is a staple in Gina's life.
This is such okay. I'm gonna let you say what it is, and then I'm just gonna.
I got introduced to this by Gina, and let me tell you something. No lie. This has definitely become a staple in my life.
Oh my God! I didn't
even know these things existed until I met you, and I am mad that I did not experiencing these things like sooner in my life. And of course, they're even better when you're high, and that is motherfucking Jack's cheese doodles.
And let's just be clear, it cannot be anything other than Jack's cheese doodles. These cheese doodles are the king and queen of cheese doodles to the point where I have finished a whole bag of these things and then lick my fingers with the cheese coming off of it. They're just I can't even explain why they're so good, but they are baked. They're not fried. I don't know if that makes them more airy, it makes them more crunchy. I honestly don't know what it is because I've had these sober and I've had these high.
So here's an interesting story, right? So here's how I know Gina had a problem with Jack's cheese doodles. Right? We go shopping, food shopping one day, and this is before we had Ava. So we go food shopping one day, and I have this issue with Gina when we go food shopping because she's short, and she has like these like this habit of like just taking off and like going off and disappearing.
I'm like, I'm gonna go get this real quick and then I'll be gone for
and
like
then it's
20
hard
minutes.
for me to find her because I can't find her between the aisles. I can't like look over and see her walking because she's so short. So I literally gotta go searching through every aisle to find her. So this one time we went food shopping. She went off to go do something. She's like, I'll be right back.
You have a picture of me with it.
Yeah, I do have a picture of you. I go looking for her, and where I find her in the chips aisle, and she's got 2 family bags of Jack's cheese doodles to bring home with her. And she's holding them up, and no lie, these bags of cheese doodles are the size. They go from her hand that's above her shoulder all the way down to her hip line.
Yep.
And she's got 2 of them, and she was serious about bringing them thing home. And she did. You brought them home.
I did bring them home, but real talk, I don't remember the last time I had one of these.
Well, I mean,
I've indulged in them here and there, and now our daughter loves these now.
Yeah, not like that. I mean, these things were.
I had a problem.
Yeah, you had a problem.
Like
you had a problem. I didn't one time. You used to keep.
I used to keep them on the side of the bed.
She used to keep them on the side of the bed. So that's how good they are.
Evo like mystery cheese, Gina like cheese doodles. So you know the weight of my heart. Bring evil some sus ass cheese in a jar, and bring Gina cheese doodles.
I hung that jersey up a long time ago. All right, we're not doing the mystery cheese. I done moved on with my life. I think I'm looking for longevity right now. Bring me some cold fruit though. I'll fuck with that.
Yo, all I gotta say is, we at number 1.
Yeah.
And we early.
Mm-hmm. So coming in
because I'm hungry.
At number 1.
Ooh, number 1. Top 5 Munchie foods. Number 1.
This right here it's simple, but yet so effective.
It's the clutch.
It will totally do the job done on any given Sunday, high or not. If you hungry at late at night and you just want something to eat quick that's gonna just give you that satisfaction, it's a goddamn bowl of cereal.
A bowl of cereal is the clutch.
And
you could have a bowl of cereal in the morning, afternoon, night. 3 a.m. It does not matter. The shit slaps.
Yeah, it does. It does. And in particular, for me, it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
So we actually had a dispute about this, about what kind of cereal should be in the top spot. We actually referenced a couple of them. And because we referenced a couple of them, we then decided to just say overall a bowl of cereal, because Evo's top was Cinnamon Toast Crunch and mine was Corn Pops with a strong Lucky Charms as like an alternate.
Nah, I'm doing this.
When I tell you, I used to fuck up Corn Pops when I was high because it was crunchy, it was sweet. It was like eating something sweet and crunchy.
Yeah, I've had
like
Corn Pops.
I can't explain it.
I just don't think that I don't.
But I when I tell you I probably haven't eaten Corn Pops in like 20 years. I don't remember the last time I ate a Corn Pop, but when I did, or when I wanted cereal, it was Corn Pops. I'm not the biggest cinnamon toast. I like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but it's not my go-to.
I was eating a bowl of this, right? And then pouring more in the milk that was left over, and then after I'm done with that, I was drinking all that milk.
Yeah, I'm not a drinking milk fan.
Give me that.
I don't drink. I don't.
Taking
By
it down
the way,
to the last drop.
When I went upstairs to use the ladies' room and pour myself more tequila, this is the Evian because we didn't have any more of the
Yeah, it hit different. Yeah.
I don't like it.
I don't like it. But you really gotta let that. You gotta let that breathe.
Okay.
Like you gotta seriously let that breathe. You can't.
I don't want no more of that.
Yeah.
And Lauren says McDonald's, and I'm going with Apple Jacks. I love Apple Jacks.
Applaud to that. I love Apple. Yo, do you know what? That should have been. That could have been. We have an honorable mention, but we're gonna add that to the honorable mentions as well.
Ooh, and Stephanie says I would make peanut butter and jelly with. Does it say frutos inside my sandwich? Ooh, I will tell you, I had Takis for the first time today. With a beer? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've never had that before. They're fucking amazing.
Takis hit. And and a peanut butter jelly, that's classic right there. That's just like, that's how you know when like the best of two worlds came together.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
So that actually that's the end of our top 5.
And we have one more honorable mention.
Oh, we do have an honorable mention because we were hanging out with my cousin today, and we actually kind of ran this by him. And when he said this, we were both like, "Ooh, yeah."
So, Fritos. It's peanut butter and jelly with Fritos.
Fritos.
Ooh. Sweet, peanut buttery, and salty.
I could see how that would work.
That's some Ratatouille shit right there.
Oh no, you said Ratatouille?
Yes, because it's a beautiful combination of flavors right there. So coming in at an honorable mention is a bag of Doritos.
I look at that and my mouth was kind of like, man, maybe I could eat that right now.
I can't believe I used to eat that flammable ass shit.
But listen, I used to fuck up a whole bag of cheese doodles. So am I gonna judge somebody for eating Doritos?
Know. Listen, can you light a cheese doodle on fire?
I don't know. I've never tried.
Listen,
maybe you could.
If you cold and you in a pinch and you out in the winter, you got yourself a bag of Doritos. You got warmth. You could light this shit on fire. This shit will keep you warm at night.
Oh, and Lauren, thank you so much. She goes, you two are the best. Great show. Have a great night.
Thank you, Lauren.
Lauren, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you. And if you haven't already, please follow us on TikTok. All of our links are listed down below in the description. But that brings us to the end of the show for tonight. I really enjoyed having this discussion about legalization of drugs and then talking about munchy ass food because I'm gonna be 100% right now. I'm gonna go fucking eat a grilled cheese right now.
Me, I'm a foodie. I love to talk about food. That's my shit.
So we are together with everybody the next 2 coming Fridays. The first Friday in August, we will actually be on vacation.
Yes, we will.
The first Friday in August, which will be August 6th. But the next 2 Fridays, you have us in July. So, again, thank you for joining us for Shit Talk Fridays. Until next Friday.
Peace out.